My name is Obinna, and I thought I knew my family. I thought we were normal. Until I found the old box hidden inside my late grandfather's hut in Amuaka. Inside were bones. Not animal bones. Human bones. A letter written in blood. A name I had never heard before. And a curse that was never meant to be broken. Since that day, strange things have started happening. Shadows move when no one is there. Voices call me in the night. And now, I fear my ancestors are watching me. But this is not just my story. This might be yours too. I never believed in curses. I always thought they were old village stories told by elders to scare children from playing in the dark. But everything changed the day my grandfather died. My name is Obinna, the first son of my father, Nady, who was the second son of Papa Ezekwim, a man everybody in the village of Amuaka feared and respected. Some called him Dibia, a man of medicine. Others whispered that he had powers he never talked about. But to me, he was just my old grandfather who smiled when I brought him kola nut. The morning he died, the sky turned dark too early. It was just 9 o'clock, but it felt like evening. The clouds looked heavy and angry. As we gathered to prepare his burial, my uncle, Ikenna, said something strange. We must not go inside Papa's back hut. I asked why. He said, because some doors are better left closed. But later that night, curiosity led me there. I was not looking for trouble. I only wanted to feel close to my grandfather again. Maybe find something to remember him by. The back hut was small and round, covered in dry palm fronds. It smelled like burnt herbs and dust. I pushed the wooden door slowly. It creaked like a whisper in the wind. Inside, the air was colder than outside, even though there was no window. In the corner, covered in a faded red cloth, was a wooden box. Old, locked, dusty, but something about it pulled me closer. My fingers shook as I touched it, and just then, the door slammed shut behind me. I turned fast, but no one was there, just the sound of wind. I should have left, but I didn't. I picked up the box and carried it home. That night, I waited until everyone slept before opening it. I had to break the rusty lock with a hammer. It took 3 hard hits. Inside the box, there were old, torn papers. A photo of a young woman I had never seen. Her eyes looked like mine. Her mouth was slightly open, as if she wanted to scream but couldn't. Next to the photo was something wrapped in black cloth. I unwrapped it slowly, and that's when I saw it. Bones. Small. Human. Clean. And beside the bones, the letter, written in ink so dark, it almost looked like blood. To the first son who opens this box. You have woken what should remain asleep. My heart pounded. Was this some kind of joke? Then I saw the name written at the end of the letter. From Adiz Ezekwim. I froze. Adiz? That name never came up in family discussions. I knew all my grandfather's children. Nady, Ikenna, Chinelo. But Adiz? Who was she? And why was she hidden? I closed the box quickly. My hands were cold. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard footsteps around my room. In the morning, I asked my father about her. Papa, who is Adiz Ezekwim? He dropped his cup of tea. His face turned pale. He whispered, "Where did you hear that name?" I told him about the box. He stood up and shouted, "Burn it! Burn that box immediately! It must not stay in this house." I asked him why. Because she was cursed. And she cursed his family too. Then he walked out of the room. He never said another word about her again. But it was too late. I had already opened the box. And something had already followed me home. Who was Adiz? Why was she erased from the family? What is the curse? What followed Obinna home? Why did Papa Ezekwim hide the secret? That night, I could not sleep. The letter, the bones, the name Adiz. Everything kept coming back to my mind like a drum that would not stop beating. Even when I closed my eyes, I still saw her face, the woman in the photo inside the box. Her eyes were wide, but they looked empty, afraid, angry, and something strange began happening in the house. At exactly 2:13 a.m., for 3 nights straight, I would hear soft knocks on my window. 3 knocks, then silence. But when I looked outside, there was nobody, only the wind blowing through the trees and the sound of distant crickets. I told myself it was just my imagination, but the 4th night it changed. This time, I did not hear knocks. I heard a voice, very soft, a whisper. It called my name. Obinna. I jumped up from my bed, sweating. The sound came from the corner of the room, where I had hidden the box under my clothes. I went to it slowly, my legs shaking. I removed the clothes. The box was still there, but something was different. The photo of Adiz, it was no longer inside. I searched all over the room. Nothing. Then I noticed something else. The photo was now sitting on top of my table, but I never put it there. And this time, her mouth was not closed. It was open like she was screaming. The next day, I traveled to a village to see someone who might know more. Mama Neka, the oldest woman in the Muaka. They said she was over 100 years old. Her eyes were white, but her mind was sharp. She used to be a friend of my grandfather long ago. Her compound was quiet. No children, no chickens, just silence and dry leaves dancing on the ground. I greeted her and gave her cola nut and palm wine, as tradition demands. She took a sip, then looked at me with her blind eyes and said, "So, the box has been opened." I felt cold. "How did you know?" I asked. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she whispered her name, "Adiz." I nodded slowly. "Who was she?" I asked. Mama Neka kept quiet for a while, then began to speak in a low voice, like she was afraid someone else might hear. "Adiz was your grandfather's first daughter," she said. "Born before your father, before your uncle Ikena, before everyone. She was beautiful, smart, but she was different. She could see things others could not, feel things no one else could feel. Your grandfather loved her deeply, but he was also afraid of her." I asked why. Mama Neka shook her head. Strange things happened around her. At age 10, she said she saw her grandmother's spirit standing by the well. The next day, the well dried up completely. When she turned 13, she fell into a deep sleep for 3 days. No one could wake her. When she finally woke up, she spoke in a voice that was not hers. A deep voice, a man's voice. And she said, "I have come to finish what was started." I felt my body freeze. Mama Neka looked me straight in the eyes. They said she was possessed. I swallowed hard. What did they do to her? Mama Neka sighed. They locked her away. They built a small hut behind the main house, your grandfather's back hut, and kept her there. No one was allowed to see her, not even her own mother. Some say she died there. Others believe she escaped into the forest and never returned. But one thing is clear. Your family wiped her name from history. They buried every memory of her. I whispered, "But why? Why so much fear?" Mama Neka leaned closer and said something I will never forget. Because Adiz was not cursed, she was a curse. I left her compound feeling weak. The air felt heavier than before. As I walked back home, I felt like someone was following me. Every few steps, I looked behind. Nothing, but the feeling never left. When I returned to the house, my room was not as I left it. The clothes I used to cover the box were now scattered on the floor. The box was open again. But this time, something else was inside. Something I had never seen before. A lock of hair. Black, curly, tied with a red thread. And a new paper. Smaller, older, with only 2 words written. "She's here." I did not sleep. I stayed up all night, holding my Bible. My heart did not rest. In the middle of the night, my younger sister Maka came to knock on my door. "Obinna," she whispered, "can I sleep in your room? There's a woman in my dreams. She keeps calling your name." My blood ran cold. What does she look like? I asked. Amaka said, "She wears white. Her eyes are very sad. Her hands are covered in blood." She says, "Tell Obinna I remember." I hugged my sister tightly, hiding my fear. That was when I knew this curse was not finished. It had just begun. The next days were worse. Chickens in our compound began dying one by one, every night. My father started waking up with deep cuts on his arms, though no one entered his room. My mother began talking to herself at night, calling names no one knew. A shadow started following me, not a shadow from the sun, a shadow that moved even in darkness. And then something terrifying happened. Candled the return of Adi's vision or reality. It was the seventh night. I was alone in my room, lights off, only a candle burning. I was reading the old letters from the box again, try to understand what Adi's was warning us about. Then I smelled something strange. Smoke, herbs, and something that smelled like burnt hair. I looked up, and there she was, standing at the corner of the room. White dress, long hair, eyes wide open. Adi's, not a dream, not imagination. She looked real. Her lips moved. "You opened the door," she said softly. "Now you must finish what I could not." "What do you mean?" I asked with tears in my eyes. She began to cry too. "They buried me alive, Obinna, because I was different, because I knew the truth. Now the land is poisoned, and the blood of our family is the price. You must dig." I asked where. "Under the iroko tree behind the hut." Then she vanished. The candle went out on its own, and I was left in darkness. What did the D's mean by finish what I could not? Why was she buried alive? What truth did she know? What lies beneath the iroko tree? Why is the family being haunted now? That night, I couldn't rest. I kept hearing her voice in my ears. "Dig under the iroko tree behind the hut." What would I find there? I had to know, but I was afraid, very afraid. I waited until the next evening, when the sun was going down and the sky was turning orange. That way, the village would be quiet and no one would see me. I picked a rusty shovel from the corner of my grandfather's storehouse. Then I went behind the main house, to the back, where the air always felt cold, even when the sun was hot. There, standing tall and wide, was the old iroko tree. Its branches looked like arms. Its leaves whispered as the wind passed, and its roots twisted like snakes underground. People in the village always said the iroko tree was sacred. No one must cut it. No one must touch it at night. But Adiz told me to dig there. So I did. The ground was dry and hard. Each time I pushed the shovel down, I felt something heavy in my chest. Like the tree didn't want to be disturbed. With each dig, the wind grew stronger. The leaves above rustled louder. But I kept going. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Suddenly, the shovel hit something. Knock. It wasn't stone. It sounded hollow. I dropped to my knees and began to dig with my hands. The soil was cold, like ice. Soon, I uncovered a small wooden box. It was old black and wrapped in red cloth. There were strange carvings on the top, symbols I had never seen before. And then I saw a name written in blood-red ink. Adiz Nwachuku. I froze. Was this her grave? Was this where they buried her? I looked around. The wind had stopped. The sky was now dark. No birds. No noise. Only silence. I touched the box. It was warm. Too warm. I slowly opened it. Inside was a doll, handmade, wrapped in white cloth, with black thread for eyes. It looked like it had been stabbed many times. There were pins inside its chest. Next to it was a letter, written in shaky handwriting. It read, "To the one who finds this. If you are family, beware. This tree holds the truth." I was never mad. I was chosen. I saw the shadow that lives under our bloodline. I tried to fight it. They buried me instead. Now, the curse is awake again. If you want to break it, you must return what they took. You must find the forbidden altar before the next moon, or we all die. The letter fell from my hand. My heart was beating fast. The forbidden altar? What did they take? Suddenly, I heard a voice behind me. "You shouldn't have opened it." I turned quickly. No one. Then a branch snapped above me. I looked up and saw a shadow on the tree. A woman. Her White dress blew in the wind, her face hidden in darkness. "They lied to you, Obinna," she whispered. "Your family is not cursed by mistake." Then she vanished. That night was the worst. I locked myself in my room, sweating, shaking, trying to understand what I had just seen. I placed the doll and let her on the table. But when I woke up in the morning, they were gone. Instead, something else was there. A bone, a small human bone, still fresh. I screamed. My mother rushed in, but when she came, the bone was no longer there. I tried to explain. She touched my head. "You're just stressed, Obinna. You're thinking too much." But I could see it in her eyes. She was hiding something. That evening, I sat with my father. I showed him the letter. I told him about the box, the doll, and the voice. His hands began to shake. "Where did you get all this from?" he asked. I told him everything. He stood up, walked to the door, locked it. Then he turned to me, his eyes heavy with secrets. "There is something I must tell you." I leaned forward. He took a deep breath. "When I was a boy, my sister Dees used to play with me every day. She would tell me strange stories. She said there was a dark thing in the forest, that it talked to her, that it asked her to do things. She said it wanted our family to serve it or die. I didn't believe her. I told our parents." He paused. "They beat her, said she was lying. Then they took her to the back hut. But I saw what happened next. One night, I heard my father and 2 other men chanting. They carried her, tied in ropes, to the Irako tree. They said a spirit must be returned to the earth. They buried her alive. Tears filled my eyes. "You knew all along?" He nodded slowly. "They said the family would be safe if she was silenced. But the tree, it never forgot. And now it's calling again." I stood up. "We have to fix this." My father shook his head. "It's too late. The altar was destroyed years ago." I asked him where it was. "In the forest. The cursed forest of Anyamiri." I whispered, "Then I will go there." They said no one returned from Anyamiri. Even hunters avoided it. But I had no choice. I packed a small bag, water, a knife, a torchlight, and the letter. Before I entered the forest, I looked up at the moon. It was almost full. "Before the next moon," the letter said. I stepped inside. The air changed immediately. It was cold, wet, smelled like blood and old leaves. Everywhere was quiet. No birds, no wind, just eyes. I felt like I was being watched. With each step, the trees grew taller. The paths twisted. My torch flickered. And then I saw it, a small clearing, rocks arranged in a circle, an old altar in the center, broken in two, and behind it, something dark was crawling on the ground. The shadow had no face, no eyes, just a body made of smoke and screams. It spoke in many voices. "Man, woman, child, all at once. You have come, child of betrayal. You carry her blood and her pain. You open the box. You woke the gate." I stepped back, afraid. "What do you want from me?" I asked. It pointed to the broken altar. "Bring it back. Return what was taken, or all of Amuka will burn." Suddenly, fire rose around the altar. I saw images in the smoke, my sister Amaka crying, my mother screaming, my village drowning in darkness. Then I saw Adiz, standing by the flames. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. "Set me free. Only the living can speak for the dead." Then everything went dark. What exactly is the forbidden altar, and how can it be restored? What was the shadow in the forest, and what is its connection to the family? How was Adiz chosen? What must Obinna return to stop the curse? What will happen if he fails before the next full moon? The darkness swallowed me. I could not feel my hands. I could not feel my legs. Only my heart beating like a drum. Boom, boom, boom. Then I opened my eyes. I was lying in the middle of the forest. The broken altar stood in front of me. But now, something had changed. There were footprints. Small ones, like those of a girl, walking around the altar in a circle. Fresh and wet with blood. I stood up slowly. The letter was still in my pocket. I held it tight. You must return what they took. Before the next moon. I didn't know what they took or how to return it, but I knew time was running out. I ran back home. I didn't care who saw me. I needed answers. I needed the truth. My father was sitting in the dark. He had not moved since I left. His hands were shaking. He looked at me and whispered, "You saw it." I nodded. The shadow, the altar, the fire. Then I asked him something I had not dared to ask before. What did they take from Adiz? He looked away. Then he said it. Her child. My chest tightened. What child? Adiz was pregnant when they buried her. The room started spinning. They said the child was a curse, that it would be born with the shadow inside. So they took it from her belly before they buried her. They never told me what they did with it. But the shadow, it wants the child back. I was cold all over. I asked him, so the child died? He looked me in the eyes. We don't know. That night, I couldn't sleep. I searched every room in the house. I opened my grandfather's old chest. Inside were torn books, faded photos, and one old diary. It belonged to great-grandma Ifioma, Adiz's mother. I flipped through the pages. One entry stopped my heart. We have removed the seed of darkness from Adiz's womb. The elders say it must never be named, but I have written it here, in case the spirits ask for it again. There was a name, Chisholm. The name was circled in red ink. I whispered it, Chisholm. Suddenly, the candle beside me went out. The air in the room changed. I heard a child's voice behind me. You called me? I turned slowly. No one was there, just the sound of a toy rolling across the floor. The next morning, I went to the oldest woman in Amuaka, Mama Nena. She lived alone near the stream. She was nearly blind, but her memory was sharp like a knife. When I said the name Chisholm, she dropped the cup in her hand. It broke into pieces. Where did you hear that name? She asked. I told her everything. Her lips trembled. Then she whispered, Chisholm is not dead. They gave the child away, far from Amuaka, to another village, told the people she was an orphan, told them nothing of the curse. She is a woman now, but the shadow has never left her. She has dreams, nightmares. She doesn't know why. But now that Adiz's spirit is awake, she will start to remember. I asked, where is she now? Mama Nena looked up at me. She lives in Obigu village. Her name was changed to hide her. She is now called Amara. Obigu was far, across the hills and rivers. I didn't care. I packed my bag again. This time, I took the diary, the doll, which had returned mysteriously to my table, and the name Chisholm written on paper. As I left, my father gave me something. A necklace. It belonged to Adiz, he said. She always wore it. If you find Amara, show her this. The road was quiet, too quiet. Every now and then, I felt something walking behind me. But when I turned, nothing was there. Sometimes, I heard laughter, a child's laughter, coming from the trees. I didn't stop. I walked faster. When I reached Obigu, the sky was already dark. I went to the local chief's house. I explained why I came. He looked troubled. Yes, we have a young woman named Amara. She came here as a baby. No one knows where she came from. She was found near the river. She lives near the market. Quiet girl, always alone. I thanked him. I walked to the house he described. There was small, quiet, filled with flower pots. I knocked. A soft voice answered. Who is it? My name is Obinna. I came from Amuaka. Please, I need to speak with you. The door opened. A young woman stood there. She had the same eyes as Adiz. Deep, sad, powerful. We sat inside. I showed her the necklace. She touched it and began to cry. I've seen this necklace before in my dreams. I showed her the doll. She shook. I've seen this too. A girl keeps handing it to me in my sleep. She says she's my mother. Then I showed her the letter. She read it in silence. Then she said the name out loud. Chisholm. The candle beside us flickered. Suddenly, a knock on the door. Slow. Heavy. 1, 2, 3. We didn't move. Another knock. Then silence. Then a whisper at the window. Return what was taken. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She said the dreams were getting worse. She saw herself standing at the Irako tree, holding something bloody in her hands. She saw the forest burning, and a voice calling her back home. She looked at me and said, "We have to go back." To the altar, I nodded. The shadow wanted the truth returned. Amara was the truth. The next day, we began the journey back. But the road was different this time. The sky was red. The wind whispered her name. We were not walking alone. As we entered Amuaka, people stared. They felt the energy around Amara. Some crossed the road to avoid her. Some mothers pulled their children closer. My mother saw her and fell on her knees, weeping. "Adiz, is that you?" We took her to the house. My father came out and stood still. He saw the face of his sister and her daughter. Then he said the words I never thought I'd hear. "I'm sorry for all we did to you." Tears ran down Amara's cheeks. The shadow is still watching. We must go to the forest now. The moon was full, big, bright, watching. We walked back to Anya Miri. This time, my father came with us. So did my mother. Even Mama Nena came, slowly with her stick. It was time. We reached the broken altar. Amara walked to the center. She stood still. Then she screamed. Her body lifted off the ground. The wind roared. The trees shook. Then the shadow came. Big, black, angry. The blood has returned. The child must speak. Then everything went dark again. What happens to Amara inside the altar circle? Will the shadow accept a return? Is she just a victim, or is there more power in her blood? What secret was never told, even by Adiz? Will the curse finally break, or is this just the beginning? The shadow circled the altar. It was not walking. It was floating. A tall black figure with no face, only smoke and red eyes. We stood frozen. No one could move. The air was heavy, like something was pressing down on our heads. Then Amara opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She was still floating above the altar, her body stiff like a tree, her eyes wide open, staring at nothing. Then, slowly, she began to speak, but the voice was not hers. It was deep, ancient, and angry. They thought they buried me, but I live in the blood. They tried to hide the truth, but the fire remembers. Mama Nena dropped to the ground, shouting prayers. My father stepped forward, shaking. "Please, let her go," he begged. "She's just a child." The shadow turned. Its voice shook the earth. "She is not just a child. She is a fire your ancestors feared. And now the fire will speak." Suddenly, Amara dropped to the ground with a loud thud. We ran to her. She opened her eyes. This time it was really her, but she looked confused, scared. She stared into the fire and whispered. I saw everything. I saw them cut Adiz open. I saw them burn the blood in the fire. They said I should never be born. But the spirit kept me alive, hidden, watching. She looked up at my father. "You were there." He fell to his knees, tears pouring from his eyes. I was young. They told me it was the only way. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what they were really doing. But I saw it. I heard her scream. And I never forgot. Amara turned to him slowly. "Then you must carry the fire too." The shadow moved toward my father. It stretched a long black arm. Smoke wrapped around his body like chains. He began to cough. "Let me go," he shouted. "Please." But the spirit's voice thundered again. "You were silent when the blood cried. You must speak now or burn." Suddenly, the altar lit up with red flames. My father screamed. Then he began to confess. We took her child because the elders feared the prophecy. They said the child would destroy the old ways. They were right. Because the old ways were full of lies, curses, death. Adiz begged us, but no one listened. Now her child has returned, and I am ready to face the fire. The shadow paused. Then it said, "Truth burns. but it also frees. The smoke released my father. He fell unconscious, but still alive. The spirit turned to Amara. You carry the last fire of Adiz. What will you do? Amara stood up slowly. Her face was calm. She walked to the altar. She took the old doll in her hand. She placed it in the center of the flames. The doll caught fire immediately. Then something strange happened. The fire didn't burn. It turned blue. It rose high into the sky. Then it disappeared, and the forest became silent. The shadow stepped back. It is done. The blood has spoken. Let no one silence it again. Then the shadow melted into the air, like smoke into wind. Gone. Sunrise over mountains the morning after. The sun rose. Birds began to sing again. For the first time, the forest felt warm, peaceful. We walked back to the village in silence. People gathered when they saw us. They looked at Amara. Some touched her hand. Some fell to their knees and begged for forgiveness. She said nothing. She just looked at the old Irako tree and smiled. She's at peace now. Later that night, I sat outside with Amara. We looked up at the stars. She asked me something. Do you think the fire is really gone? I looked at her and said, no, I think it's inside you now. She nodded slowly. Then I will protect it, so no one else suffers like Adiz did. Broken heart, a final secret. Just when we thought it was over, I went back to the diary. I read the last page again. Something had changed. There was a line I had never seen before, written in fresh ink. It said, the child had a twin. I stared at it, shocked. A twin? I ran to Amara. She read it too. Her hands began to shake. I always felt like something was missing inside me. Now I know why. My twin, they took my twin too. We went back to Mama Nena. She was shaking her head before we even spoke. I was afraid of this, she said. Yes, there were 2 children, but only one was kept alive. The other was hidden in a shrine deep inside the forbidden forest of Nobi. Not dead, but not alive either. Some say the twin became the shadow itself. Amara's face turned pale. Then we must go there. I looked at her. Are you sure? You just ended one curse. Why chase another? She looked at the sky. Because that curse has my face. Who is Amara's twin? Is the twin alive or something darker? Did the elders trap the spirit in the wrong child? Is the shadow really gone or just moved? Will Amara survive a second journey into a deeper, darker forest? The journey to Nobi began before sunrise. The villagers warned us not to go. Even Mama Nena begged us to forget. Some secrets must stay buried, she whispered. But Amara had already made up her mind. If my twin is still out there, she said, I must find them. So we packed our bags and walked toward the forest no one dared enter. The trees of Nobi were black, not from fire, but from something deeper, older. No bird sang there. No wind blew. It felt like the forest was holding its breath. Every step we took, the ground groaned. We followed the old path marked with bones and red cloth, signs of a sealed shrine. But Amara kept going. She didn't look back. She was being pulled by blood. After hours of walking, we saw it, a broken archway of stone, covered in moss and carvings we couldn't understand. Behind it stood a small round house, built from red clay. No door, just darkness. We stood there, silent. Then we heard it, a whisper, not loud, not human. It sounded like Amara's voice, but she wasn't speaking. She looked at me, confused. Do you hear it too? She asked. I nodded. It's saying your name, over and over. We stepped inside the shrine. Inside it was cold, but not from weather, from something watching. In the center of the room was a mirror, tall, cracked, covered in dust. Amara walked toward it. As she wiped the glass, she screamed. Woman standing medium skin tone. The other Amara. Inside the mirror was her reflection, but it was not her. The girl inside the mirror looked the same, but her eyes were black. Her skin was pale, and she was smiling. Not kindly, but like she had been waiting to be seen. Suddenly, the girl in the mirror spoke. You came too late. Amara stepped back. Who are you? The girl laughed. I am what they tried to kill. I am the half that remembers everything. The half they buried and forgot. You got the love, sister. I got the pain. Then the mirror began to shake, and the girl stepped out of the mirror. The air grew hot. My skin burned like fire. The two girls faced each other. Miramara tilted her head. We were one soul, one power. But they feared us, so they split us. You became the light, and I became the shadow. Amara whispered, I don't want to fight you. The twin replied, it's too late for that. The fire has been awakened. Now we must decide, will we burn together or destroy each other? The shrine began to shake. Walls cracked. Voices cried from the walls. Ancestors screaming. Blood remembering. And then, mirror, Amara ran toward her. But Amara did not run. She opened her arms and embraced her. A blast of light shot through the shrine. The whole forest lit up red. I was thrown to the ground. Everything went silent. When I opened my eyes, only one girl was standing, Amara, but her hair had turned white, and her eyes were gold. She looked at me and said, she's inside me now. We are one again. And the curse has ended. The shrine collapsed behind us. The black trees began to turn green. Birds started to sing. The wind returned, and the fire was gone, back to the village. When we returned to the village, everyone gathered. They saw Amara, but they could feel something had changed. Some were afraid. Some were in awe. Mama Nena came forward. She placed her hand on Amara's chest. Then she smiled. You are the balance now. Not light, not darkness, just truth. And truth is powerful. That night, the stars shone brighter than ever. We sat by the fire, and Amara finally spoke. I forgive them. The elders, the villagers, even the shadow. Because carrying hate is like drinking poison and waiting for others to die. Fire the truth can be buried, but it never dies. Fire's secrets have power only when we hide them. Fire when we face our past with courage. We break its chains. Fire healing begins the moment we stop running from the fire and start listening to it. But just when we thought the story was over, a small boy in the village began to draw strange symbols in the sand. He said a woman in white came to him in his dream and whispered the names of all the elders who died in the ritual. But the boy was born after they died. So how did he know? And who is this woman in white? Could the spirits still be watching? Could the curse still be alive in someone else? Are the ancestors truly resting, or are they preparing to speak again? In Speech Bubble, find out in our next story. The Woman Who Walks in Dreams. If this story gave you chills, if you felt the fire of truth burning in your chest, then don't stop here. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the twin is truly gone? Or is she still hiding inside Amara? Would you forget what the elders did, or burn everything down? Subscribing is free. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Because in this village, nothing ever stays buried for long.